Welcome to Sketching 101, a series on my channel that I aim to focus on all things design sketching and walk you through a step-by-step process where I develop a drawing for you. Today we will be endeavoring to sketch a backpack or some kind of satchel, and I'll be starting from the ground up and working the drawing, starting with the basic structure and foundation and then adding more definition and details to the design. As usual, I'm using a Pro Marker pen. This one is in bright orange with a chisel tip nib. And the reason why I use these markers is because if you make a mistake, that mistake is irreversible. It's there to stay, and it's up to you to then decide how to best fix it and resolve the drawing. It helps develop your confidence, and at the same time it allows me to show you what I'm doing in a lot more detail because it's a lot bigger and easier to see. So we're not going to start with side views and front views. We're going to go into the three-dimensional drawing first. I think I'll base it right in the center of the page, and like I normally do, I'll start with a base foundation. So I'm thinking a line that runs there and a line that runs there and connect them up. Now, like I say in a lot of my videos, these reference lines are there for your reference. They're not for anyone else. If they're in perspective, if they're out of perspective, it doesn't really matter, because in the end, these lines are supposed to be here just to guide you developing your drawing. So what I'm going to do is just add some horizontal lines along the back. So we have some kind of semblance of a basic shape. Now in this shape, we can start by developing what we want. So let's get the angle right of the case itself. What I like to do is use the base as a constraint almost, and from there start by drawing out something that might have a good reference to the shape that I want to work with. So a rounded aesthetic at the back. Let's just pull another line down. Okay, now we can experiment with curves. So I'm going to pull a curve down and over, and in this space maybe try and link something up, give it a bit more dimension. Okay, keeping this nice and loose. As normal, I haven't warmed up before the sketch. I'm going straight into the drawing with no prior warming up at all. Okay, this is a good form factor to work with. Now it's up to you to decide whether you want to include the actual slings for the strap, or focus more on the details. Now, I did say that I wasn't going to do a side view, but I think I will today just for this example. So we're going to start, I think, by just boxing in some kind of shape that gives us an understanding of what we're going to be doing. This is going to be a front view, so I'll just name this F. So the question is, how are we going to detail this drawing? So far I've added a underside, so I've highlighted that here, and now it's up to us to determine what we're going to add. So pockets are always good, so I'm thinking maybe a pocket on this side, because this is the side that we are looking at over here. And I do like to add some detailing, so maybe we can give it a little cutout on each side. Okay, I'm just ad-libbing at this point, freestyling. Let's think. A couple of dividers. I think maybe what we can do is a nice diagonal line that cuts through it, and because of that diagonal line, we allow it to create a flap for some straps to connect up. So we have one strap that connects up here and another one that connects up here, and that adds a bit of visual intrigue to the drawing. Of course, we can add a handle to the top, so that's always nice, a nice and simple pull handle at the top of it. I do realize that these lines are a little bit messy, but it's important for you to keep yourself loose and to keep yourself experimenting. Okay, now what we can do is maybe add, of course, these little tabs are going to be connected to the body of the bag, so that's something. Now we can add some kind of pocket that links up or that has some relationship to the top. So something like this. Okay, nice. So the elements that we have element number 1, which is the handle. Element number 2, which is the strap or the flap that goes over. That's the main element of the design. Number 3, we have the actual straps that hold the flap down. And 4, we have this front pocket. And I suppose 5 can be the side pocket. So it's almost like a hiking bag or hiking gadget in one way or another. So let's start. First, let's do the basic stuff. Let's draw out the so-called flap. So what I plan to do is draw a horizontal line from this point to this point. Now what I'm thinking is, instead of keeping it fully horizontal, I'm going to give it a slight angle to it, so it's a little bit more interesting, and then round it around the edge. Okay. Next step is pulling a diagonal line down. Now it's good to think about your spacing here, because we are working from this corner of the drawing. So if we're looking, that's the corner we're drawing from now. So it's determining now how best the line should travel down, and I'm thinking that should be the end point. Is that okay? Let's make it a little bit lower. That's the end point. So you pull a diagonal line across, but because it's a bag and it's rounded, as we know by these reference lines, the diagonal line is going to have a slight arc to it, just like that. Okay. And we can finish off just by pulling it, making it a little bit thicker on the top. That's nice. Now, because it has a little bit of depth to it, maybe what we can do is add a underside to give it that little air of thickness to the material. And now we can experiment with the straps that are going to connect up. So what I should have emphasized is how the straps connect to the top of the case, which I'm thinking just go up and connect over here. So we can emphasize that now in this. So again, the straps we are drawing are going to follow the form of the case itself. They're actually going to be rounded. So what we're going to do is focus on this edge and pull one strap, two straps down, and then on the edge we're going to do another one and another one. Now on this side they're going to be it's going to be a little bit smaller, because your vision is focusing on this area, and as you move further away everything's going to get a bit smaller in the distance. So we'll fix that just now. Over here we're going to be adding a horizontal line, and the same over here for the straps to fit. Now, of course, if you want it to be a little bit more accurate, maybe you want to conform the strap to the underside of the case, but I don't think I'll do that in this one. Let's just leave it the way it is. Next step is emphasizing where the clasps meet, and I'm thinking they'll be here. So one here and one here. Okay. Round them off, just make them square, and we can add some a little sample of 3-dimension to them by adding a little bit of depth at the back. And something I enjoy is adding some kind of clip or a button that you'd have to depress to open them. So I'm just going to add some little tabs on the sides, which is quite nice. Okay, next step, we're going to add where the, apologies, that was a pair of glasses that fell. We're going to add an edge where the tab meets the body, and I'm thinking it's just going to fit over here and over here. And maybe what we can do is, yeah, let's just seal it flat on the surface, so we can round off the edges of these. Okay. And if we're feeling confident and we want to give this this part of the top strap a little bit of leeway, we can add some extra material that's being pulled through. So giving it a little bit of a curve over the top, we add some idea that it is a material strap. Now you've got a very good dimension that you can work with. It looks very nice, and to the untrained eye it looks like a strap. So that's cool. We're getting somewhere. And the final step is to add this defining underside to the drawing. So what we're going to do is pull a curved line up and a line across and down and round, and it's going to disappear in the corner, I guess. Okay, that's quite nice. We've almost highlighted all the elements on this drawing. The final two things are the handle and the side pocket, so let's just do that quickly. What I'll do is I'll draw a reference line through, so it's a little bit easier to see. It's always good to center yourself in your drawing. It helps you a little bit when it comes to developing your idea in a bit more accurately. Okay, center line down the middle, and what we're going to do now is, I'm thinking, what should the design be? Should it taper upwards? Yeah, okay, so we're going to taper it. So we can use these two reference lines as important lines, because as we know, this line that comes across, this curved line, meets the body. We can now emphasize the side pocket by pulling it around. So I'm thinking we can give it a bit of an angle to it, and an angle on this side maybe, and round it around the case enclosure and round the underside of it off. Add some kind of edge. Okay, so that's a very, very simple pocket to the enclosure too. I realize this pen is about to run out of ink, so I hope I'll be able to get this drawing nice and dark for you to see properly when it's all finished. So we have our elements. Last one is the handle. Now, because we are looking at it and the case is going that direction, what we can do now is use that to our advantage. We have this horizon line, and we can understand that the handle is going to taper away. Depending on how you want to present it, you might want to add some form of reference line that runs through to the back. That's quite nice. What I like to do with my handles is to just rough out some circles that you can then use as elements to help you. And you just create some arcs between the 2 points. This is a very peculiar looking handle. And just round it off, give it some defining factor. Now I've just noticed that the handle looks a bit skew. So what we're going to do is we're going to fix that somehow by pulling the perspective closer in the other direction. Okay, that looks a little bit better. Right, and you might want to add some detail, like some little rivets on the handle itself. It is challenging using marker pens, but I tell you, it's the most rewarding feeling being able to draw this way, because you're able to see your mistakes and correct them if you can. And just to end off the drawing, what we can do is add some kind of detail over here on the side, maybe a cutaway or a pocket or a texture of a material of some kind. But we have our many elements. And over here we might, since this is some kind of hiking satchel, what we can do is pull a frame through the underside, which I always find quite nice with hiking bags. So we round off the undersides, give it a bit of a curve, and give it some kind of frame to sit on in between. That's quite nice. It's different. Something I did not emphasize was the strap. It'll be coming out the back. And now that we're sitting in this space, it's a little bit constricted. So the question is, what do we do now? I think we're going to leave it just the way it is. Don't highlight the strap this time around. What we can do now is emphasize places. So what I like to do now with bags especially is highlight the stitching. So we can add a little bit of just some dotted lines. I hope you can see this. Highlighting where the joinery might be between the strap and the casing. And it's always good just to refine your edges to give them a little bit of depth. And let's see, over here we can maybe add some kind of texture. This is perfect. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to draw some diagonal lines just to highlight some kind of different material that's being used in the drawing. So I'll just do that over here first. Now, cross-hatching is a very, very important skill, and I highly recommend you train your eye and practice developing the technique. How best will you be able to see this? I think I'll work backwards so you'll be able to see it better from your side. Being able to draw freehand and space these lines out equally, it definitely saves you a lot of time and effort, and it's a very efficient technique to learn. So I think that's it. If we wanted to over-engineer the thing, we might want to add a water bottle sling. Let's just do that quickly since we're at it. So some kind of water bottle pouch that would sit on the side and be stitched to the enclosure maybe. That's quite nice. Of course, that would also have some kind of clasp attached to it, so you would pull over some kind of strap that would sit on the inside, maybe also give it a bit of a material bend. Like I've said in a lot of my videos, sketching is all just about experimenting, seeing what works best, what you enjoy. It's about exploring. Okay, we have a pretty nice, pretty detailed illustration of a satchel / hiking bag. What you might want to do now is label it in a few places, since we've got some nice open space. So what you can do is either draw a straight line with an arrow, or whatever suits you the best. What I like to do to add a bit more dynamism is a arcing arrow, which separates the eye from the drawing, because the drawing itself is very rigid in its way, but these arrows are a bit dynamic, so it allows your eye to see it a little bit easier. So what I'm going to do is just add a few arrows highlighting some specifics, and the last arrow can be down here. So I'm thinking this can be called, hope you can read this, angle flap, I don't know. The underside can be called frame, since it is a frame. And this part of the material can be housing for the sleeping bag, so we can just write sleeping bag in small font. Now what I also like to do, and this might be taking the sketch a little bit too far because we already have a lot of orange on the page and it's hard to separate your eye from what's going on in the drawing. I like to highlight what these little clips do. So what I would normally do in a sketch is indicate it with a circle. So let me try and do that now. I indicate a small circle around the functioning objects and I create small arrows. So in a way it indicates there's some kind of movement, whether it's rotating or whether it's been, it's usable as a tool that can be opened. It's important to highlight that in some places. Okay, so that is, in a nutshell, how to sketch out some form of hiking bag. Really enjoyed this exercise. It was a nice progression. I hope you've learned something from this exercise and found a way to incorporate that or this into your technique. It's very daunting to see. When you're watching, or should I say, when you first see a drawing like this on the page and you ask yourself how it came to be, the reality is it's very simple. If you follow a process of building up the drawing, you will never you'll never be the same again once you realize how simple it is, and it's just a process of layering up. I don't know what these things are, but I'm thinking some kind of ventilation on the side. This is a classic case of a drawing that's been overworked and it's a little bit too busy, but you get the drift. So thank you very much for watching this episode, and I hope to see you in the next one.